everyone, and welcome to this episode of Low Season Traveller Insider Guides. I'm Kate Burgess. Peter from the Malta Tourism Authority is back with us today, and we discuss Malta's Pride Week and the steps that Malta has taken to make sure that all the travellers from the LGBTQI+ community are welcomed and safe. We also talk about the epic festivals that Malta has all year round, and the cherry on top, the delicious foods and wines that Malta has to offer. Hope you enjoy. Hi, Peter. Welcome back to Low Season Traveller Insider Guides. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. And thank you for having me back. You know, I must have done something right the first time.
Absolutely. I mean, talking about Malta, how can you go wrong, really? So a really interesting thing about Malta is that many people wouldn't know that it's actually ranked first place on the ILGA Europe Rainbow Europe Index in 2016, 17 and 18. What makes Malta such a safe and exciting place for the LGBTQI+ community?
I mean, even just to expand on that, that includes 15, 19, 20, and I think we're even probably going to get it for this year as well. We are the premier destination. And I think the reason it's so safe is Malta has one of the lowest, if not the lowest, crime rate in Europe. And this is probably down to the warmth and the hospitality of the locals. They really are the friendliest nation that I've had the pleasure of going to. And with this, you know, we've really just developed this air of inclusivity for the LGBTQI plus community. You know, you've obviously said that, you know, we've topped the Rainbow Index there, which is pretty much the international standard for the measure of inclusivity. But in 2015, we brought in our Gender Identity Act. So we brought that into legislation, and that was passed by government, which outlawed gender conversion therapy. We legalized same-sex marriage in 2017 and are probably the destination in Europe for same-sex weddings. And then alongside that, in 2018, we actually brought in gender-neutral passports as well. So we have been at the forefront of bringing in inclusivity pretty much into the mainstream. And I think what usually surprises people the most is that, you know, we do all this, but actually Malta is a highly, highly religious and Catholic country. So even with this, it's something like 90% of the Maltese population agree with that inclusivity record and agree with, you know, being open and friendly with everyone from all walks of life. So it just shows you how warm and, you know, how friendly those locals are.
And of course, with that LGBTQI+ community, often the biggest event of the year is Pride Week. And
Yes.
Obviously we will get into a bit more of Malta's partying later, but when is Malta's Pride Week and what is there for people to participate in?
Yeah, so Pride Week is one of the highlights of the calendar, you know, being that we are the #1 destination for inclusivity. So it really brings a genuine and exciting atmosphere to the whole island, not just to one area, but literally the whole island. So it's held every September, usually in the second or the third week of September. This year, I believe it starts on around about the 17th of September, and it's a week-long celebration, and it hosts a series of events from cultural events to parties to festivals to conferences to fashion nights, has a highly recommended Pride boat party, and then culminates in this weekend parade through the streets of Valletta involving floats and dancers and street performers amongst all other attractions. And also September is held then because it's the perfect time to visit the island with the weather still warm and sunny, averaging around about 26 degrees during the day. And such is the popularity of the event that actually Malta has been given the prestigious honor of hosting Europride in 2023. And Europride is Europe's largest pride event, which in previous years has drawn crowds of nearly over 300,000 people. So it just shows you, you know, how well we do our Pride Week that we've now been given that hosting duties as well.
Yeah, Malta is definitely at the forefront of that. That's really impressive. I really hope that other countries start adopting that. And I didn't actually know that fact as well about the gender neutral passports. That's really awesome that they do that.
I believe we were the first country in Europe to bring that in. So yeah, as I say, that's been about 3 years now that's been in place.
So on a little bit of a different note, as you mentioned in our previous episode, in the past 7,000 years, there has been countless civilizations that occupy Malta, which obviously have a direct impact on my favorite thing in the world, the cuisine. Romans, Spanish, French, the list goes on. What would you say is traditional cuisine in Malta?
Oh, um, traditional cuisine in Malta is, as you say, a fusion of all the past civilizations that have called Malta its home and have influenced its kind of heritage. So the Italians have probably had the greatest influence just with kind of the proximity to Italy. So you can expect pastas being a staple. But alongside this, there's been a North African impact, which is evident in the sort of tagine style of cooking, which is synonymous with the region. And then even the British brought over things like spices from the old colonies and their love of preserves, while the French also left an impressive impact, even though they were only in rule for about 2 years. So some of the traditional dishes that I can maybe recommend, you've got a rabbit stew, you've got bracioli, which are beef olives, you've got caponata, which is kind of like a Maltese version of ratatouille. So there's that French coming in. And there's also bigila, which is a thick paste of broad beans and garlic. But alongside the traditional meals, there's also some impressive native produce for tourists to try, especially during kind of like festive celebrations. So we have imare, which is a sweet pastry filled with a date filling, or we have fagioli, which is a baked Easter treat, often cut into themed shapes. And we're also famous for producing honey from our native black bee, a variety of oils and preserves, again from that Italian and British influence. And we also have our famous gozzetan goat's cheese, which includes a real delicious peppered variety for something a little bit different.
Yum, 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 yum. My
Sitting
mind's
here
almost
getting
gone
hungry
blank
already.
just thinking about it. Yeah. And of course, being in the Mediterranean, it is inevitable that seafood has to be on every menu in Malta.
Yes.
Are there any special seafood dishes that visitors must try?
Oh God, yeah, naturally, being an island nation, it literally is a staple. So we have lampuki, which is also known as dolphin fish, which is probably one of the most celebrated seasonal fishes. So that's from kind of mid to late August through to December, so perfect for your low season. And there are many ways to prepare this fish, but lampuki pie is a traditional one, and it's a popular way so it's a pie filled with the lampuki fish and fresh veg and herbs as well. We also have a spaghetti with an octopus sauce. So again, that kind of Italian influence, but this is much more with a Maltese twist on it. So the sauce includes obviously grilled and shredded octopus, wine, tomatoes, peas, and black olives. So it's a perfect accompaniment for those Maltese red wines. And then for those calamari fans, they'll be spoiled for choice because there's a variety of ways for preparing the wonderful delights of calamari. But stuffed calamari is more popular in Malta and is more flavorsome than the battered or the deep fried versions as well. So it's often stuffed with onions, ricotta, garlic butter, and sauteed onions as well.
So it should always be better than the battered version. That always
A
just
hundred.
breaks my heart a little bit when they deep fry this beautiful, gentle seafood. So I'm glad that Malta is stuffing it and presenting it like it should be.
Yeah, we'll never come to Scotland then.
I've experienced, would come again, not for the food. And you just mentioned there as well the Maltese red wines. And I know that Malta produces their own wine, but not actually enough to export it. So it's a real specialty to have on the island.
Yes. So yeah, so as we kind of touched on briefly, Gozo is the home of the wine in the archipelago. So a little bit of background. So due to the unique geological makeup of the islands, the vines and the grapes grown here have actually perfectly fertile land in which for them to flourish. Alongside this, the hot summers and the warm springs, autumns, and winters are actually an ideal climate for year-round growth, and they actually grow faster in Malta than they do in some other areas around Europe. And then, given the size of the island, the actual salt seawater gets caught on the winds and almost kind of like seasons the vines prior to production, which makes for this unique flavor once they're pressed and fermented. So we do have like the common varieties such as your Merlots, your Sauvignons, your Malbecs. but we also have our own indigenous varieties called Galuza and Gargantina. And as you've kind of alluded to the question, Malta only produces enough wine for its consumption, so it's rarely exported, meaning sampling the wine here is a truly unique experience that you can only have while in Malta. While you're on the islands, you can actually visit some of the vineyards, learn about the processes, and even have some tasting sessions accompanied by local delicacies. And I can completely back this up. The Maltese wine is truly distinctive because I'm not naturally a wine drinker. Usually, I turn my nose up at pretty much most wines that I have. But on a lot of the trips that I've been out and there on, I've found multiple varieties of even those traditional wines and the indigenous ones that we have that are completely delicious. I've thoroughly enjoyed them and actually have been a perfect accompaniment to any meal that I've had out there.
That's a big recommendation for someone that doesn't drink wine.
It's a huge recommendation, isn't it? So I never thought I'd be recommending wine ever in my life, but there you go. Maltese wine is the way forward.
There you go. If only they exported it. But then again, you've just got to go to Malta to try it out.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, bookending this podcast a little bit with the partying, the general partying in Malta, I got to say, looks, for lack of a better word, just epic. And after all of us being in a pandemic for a year and a half and hardly going out absolutely anywhere, I watched way too many YouTube clips of people partying in Malta, just wishing that I was there. What are the major festivals or parties that happen during the low season?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, Malta really is the hidden gem when it comes to this kind of like lively scene, but it really is starting to gain international attention. And some people have even put it in as, you know, being like Ibiza, but a lot cheaper, not paying €100 to get into a club or anything like that. So we do have our own party area. It's called Patraville, and it's right in the heart of the resort of St. Julian's. And it's packed to the brim with eclectic bars, cozy hangouts, and nightclubs boasting beautiful views out over the bays that they're located on. And then alongside this, yeah, there's a large number of events that are held throughout the year and also during the low season. So one of the first ones maybe that I can talk about is Animac's Lost and Found. Animac is a radio DJ over here in the UK. It's been held annually since 2015 and is usually held in April, around about the start of April. And it's a myriad of internationally renowned artists, including Annie Mac and her husband Todd Lattie, who descend upon the island, and they host a range of parties in unique locations around Malta, from Cafe Del Mar in Bugiba up to the Red Tower in Melia. And you can even check out the after movies for a taste into the vibe and the style that they bring to our sandy shores. There's then also the International Fireworks Festival, which is held every May, which is a celebration of Malta's ascension to the EU. And the firework displays held over the waters of the Grand Harbour of Valletta. So you're guaranteed a spectacular display from the viewpoints in Valletta itself. And a real buzz is created through the streets in the build up to the main display. We also have a winter carnival that's held every February. There's also a summer edition that's held in August, but obviously that's not low season. And the winter carnival, locals and tourists mingle in a full day celebration full of colorful floats that parade down the street, pop-up concerts and music displays, and the festivities last well into the night. So I would highly recommend that you bring your dancing shoes. And then lastly, I cannot mention partying without talking about the village festas, and this is probably something that's quite synonymous with Malta. So every town and village has its own feast day or festa, and it's usually in relation to their local patron saint. And these celebrations are a joyous event for all those involved with local artists, local musicians, local dance and music groups. And they come together and they celebrate the heritage and culture of their little town and village with street food and processions, and usually culminate an impressive fireworks display. And these feast days are spread throughout the entire calendar year. So no matter when you visit, you'll probably be able to find one that's going on. Really great way to mix with the host population.
Yeah, on that, with mixing with the population, being a large tourist destination, how are the Maltese with the tourists? And I ask that because there are many destinations that have been overwhelmed with tourists, and you find that the locals don't want them there anymore. And that's why we have low season traveler. We're trying to encourage those people to go out of those peak seasons. But what is that relationship like of the Maltese people with the tourists?
Yeah, so I'll give you a little bit about the kind of like the tourism in Malta. So, the last part of the decade, we have seen exponential growth. So obviously the summer months, it's glaringly obvious that we're going to have the crowds in there. I mean, to put it in perspective, 2019 saw nearly 3 million inbound tourists to the island, and our island actually only has a population of under 500,000. So
Oh,
that is
wow.
massive. So yeah, so from that point of view, low season is the kind of perfect time to go. But within that, there's still never any hostility. There's still never any, ill feelings towards the tourists. The Maltese are very welcoming. They're very warm, very friendly. And to be honest, I think the only way that I can probably describe this is actually telling you a story from one of my own holidays. So my first holiday to Malta, I think it was about 15, nearly maybe turning 16. Grumpy little teenager, didn't want to do anything with my mom and dad. And so I was like, right, I'm going to go out in the evening. So I walked down from my hotel out into Baluta Bay, and I saw this kind of like a bit of a commotion going on at one of the swimming pools. And I was like, oh, what's going on over there? So I went over, and it was a water polo match. So I was like, I don't understand water polo, but I'll sit down, I'll have a drink and watch what's going on. So unfortunately, I did smoke at the time, and I sat down and I put my cigarettes out on the table, and the guy next to me turned around and was like, you're obviously not from here. And I was like, well, how can you tell that? And he's like, well, everyone here smokes Rothmans and you have Lambert and Butler. And we started speaking basically around that. And, he was kind of trying to tell me about the rules and how water polo is played. 2 hours later, I was sitting with the family of the water polo players. I was sitting with the players who had taken part in the actual match themselves. They had won, so they were celebrating. They had a massive table out with food, drinks, all the little treats and delicacies. And yeah, they had accepted me as pretty much part of their family. Like I was sitting drinking with them and eating their food. And I was like, oh, look, let me give you some money because, obviously, you've given me food, etc. And they were like, no, it's fine. Don't worry. You were here, you were celebrating with us. We're just happy you're here. And yeah, I mean, I was with them pretty much until nearly 1, 2 o'clock in the morning when I got a phone call from my mum being like, you need to kind of come back to the hotel. What's going on? And I was like, oh, I forgot. I found another family, they're going to take me home instead. So yeah, just even as a, awkward kind of teenager, they really opened their arms. And, I wasn't the most social back then, but, they just really made you feel at ease and you just opened up with them. And yeah, it was honestly one of my favorite experiences that I've had ever in Malta. And that, I think that just shows how welcoming they actually are.
It's a beautiful story. That's awesome. So, of course, on the final question, when is low season and why is low season the best time to visit?
Yeah. So low season, well, I mean, first of all, Malta is a year-round destination. So you've already alluded to it previously. We have over 300 days of sunshine each year. The summers are your typical Mediterranean summers, hot and dry, but the winters and the springs and the autumns, you've still got beautiful, mid 20 degrees Celsius for the shoulder seasons. Even in the winter, you're still talking late teens. So it's perfect to go around at that point in terms if you're looking for the weather. We've already talked about the events that go on all the way throughout the year. We've already talked about the activities that are available all the way throughout the year. We're not just May to September, shut down everything, all other times. Alongside this, yeah, we've already discussed it. We've got those events calendars. Easter and Christmas are both massive celebrations, with us being highly religious country. So, you can come along then and visit the island at that point and, really enjoy the festivities that go on. Alongside this, our gastronomy scene that we've touched on is dictated by seasonality. So menus can change every quarter. So as the produce that supplies them changes. So going off season allows for a sample of different varying flavors that you can't have any other time there as well. There's just too many reasons to even list. I hope I've given you some of them there, but yeah.
You have. It's been brilliant, and I very much appreciate your time, Peter. Again, I am just adding another destination to my ever-growing travel bucket list. Hopefully, those borders are open soon, and I can get out there.
Yes, I completely agree. And maybe we can do a little exchange. Like I can come over to Australia, you can come to Malta, and then that way we can experience each other's cultures.
Deal. Lock it in. Done.
Sorted.
Deal.
Yeah, in the diary.
Thanks, Peter.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Peter for joining us this week. Great news, Malta is now on the green list for the UK. So pack your bags, go relax, explore, and party it up. If you have any feedback or destinations you would like to hear more about, message us on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn at Low Season Traveller. Keep your travel dreams alive, and more now than ever, travel is better without the crowds.